all the linkages need to work together. Through we have the Younger Investment and Promotion Authority, which tries to drive the support for the development. Yes, it is working, of course. We believe in the country that nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be questions. I'm really delighted there's so many women entrepreneurs here. And there will be questions on, you just mentioned in passing women in tourism, but I'll let that be for the questions from the floor. I'm going to turn now to Marjorie. So, two things, Marjorie, that have come up already. We're only 10 minutes into our panel discussion. One is Brand Africa. So, is there a brand Caribbean? Are you guys even thinking of that kind of concept? And secondly, you are head of a coalition of services. So this is what Mr. Jobe said as well. People working in different areas, different departments. So is that something that is quite useful to have when you're promoting tourism as development?
Yes, thank you, Shada. Let me just take 1 minute to just thank the ITC for facilitating the participation of the Caribbean Network for Service Coalition and to the Rwandan government for its warm hospitality. Yes, we actually do have a Caribbean brand, and I would say that the Caribbean has an established tourist brand that and represents a fertile learning ground for collaborations because we really have invested seriously in the product. The Caribbean brand is known for sun, sea, sand, and its warm culture. But what I find happening currently is that we are looking within the region at how we can expand that brand, how we can diversify the tourism brand. For example, in the context of spa and wellness, there are active discussions happening with how to have a unique service related to the spa and wellness sector. Why is that important? Because it's important to differentiate your product. And it's important to move away from a traditional term of, say, a Swedish massage to perhaps coconut milk massage, for example. So yes, we have a strong brand, and we are now working on how to diversify the brand into different services sectors. And we do find that as we look into other areas, for example, sports tourism, environmental services sectors, linkages that would strengthen our health and wellness sectors, for example, we are finding that there are opportunities in which we can strengthen the brand even further.
I talked to the Rwandan colleagues you met here, and there was quite a lot you could learn. We used to call it South-South. I don't like that term very much, but learning from each other. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I think it's very important wherever we travel in the world that we seek to learn from each other. I think that in the case of the Caribbean, we represent a very strong case study from which Africa can learn from our mistakes in tourism, as well as learn from us in terms of what we have done well. Because let's not be mistaken, we have an excellent product that has worked very well for the region, and we have areas of excellence in human resource and capital development in tourism. And I think that's just one of the few areas that we can talk about. Community development tourism is also a strong area for us. Ecotourism as well. And you mentioned learning from the Rwandan government. Yes, I had occasion to speak to my colleagues from the Rwanda Development Board because they're doing such significant work in doing business, in the area of improving their business environment. I think that this is definitely something Jamaica will take away from them, and we will certainly
accessibility are not really, I have to say, part of my lexicon when I think of tourism. I confess I'm probably a bit retarded in this, but I want to learn from you about thank you, Márcio. I want to learn from you about how these concepts fit into tourism as we know it today and in the future.
Thanks, Shada. And the reason why I'm here is precisely that ethics is not always lexicon of tourism. Tourism, which economists call export of services, is one of the most obvious features of globalization. And like globalization, it has its right side and it has its dark side. Now, we know the right side, contribution to development, to income, to wealth creation in really developing countries. We still have a wealth of magnificent sites. That's well known. But there's also a dark side, which has to do with environmental degradation, which has to do with damage to the lives of communities who've been long established in touristic sites, which has to do with the exploitation of children, not to talk about sexual tourism. So, like globalization, we have to try and get as much as possible benefits and limit as much as possible the costs. And this is this necessity that led the members of the UNWTO, the United Nations World Trade Organization, which for many years I used to call the other WTO. Now I switched sides. The other WTO I call the other WTO. So the members of this UN World Tourism Organization have roughly 10 years ago decided on a charter which is a global code of ethics for tourism. And this global code for ethics for tourism, which by the way was endorsed by the UN General Assembly, so it's now not only a UNWTO but also a UN instrument, sets up 10 principles which have to be followed in order for tourism to be responsible, sustainable, accessible to all. So that's what the charter is, and there was a committee which was set up at the time, which I had the privilege to chair since last year when I stepped down from the other WTO, and which is entrusted with implementation, follow-up, monitoring, surveillance these principles in tourism in general. Now, the big advantage of this benchmark is that it is a global public benchmark. There are in tourism many fair tourism labels, different sorts in different regions, between airlines, between tour operators, between hotels. But the nice thing about this code is that it is a global one. It's for everybody, it's worldwide, and it is in a way much more of a leveling ethical playing field than this myriad of private standards which proliferate everywhere. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to push it. It's global, it's easy to use, and that's the content which we are trying to push in order, again, at the end of the day, that not only the tourism industry, but also tourists individually realize that when they buy a package, they don't just buy something they will consume happily. They go to other places, they have to live with other people. In many ways, they have to behave more like than like a consumer, and that's what we're after.
Right, so Pascal, in practical terms, say I'm going to choose a package tour or something, will I be able to actually see this label? How is it publicized? How do people know about it?
Well, good question, because that's the practical operational one. Now, how does it work?
Walk the talk.
How does it work? If you want, as a touristic industry or whatever sort, to commit to this principle, the UNWTO has a process according to which you can include this in your corporate social responsibility commitments. So we have a sort of simplified version of this charter, which the private sector can sign. If the private sector signs it, we check a number of things in the UNWTO, and then they are allowed to use a logo, which is the UN ethics logo, in order to upgrade the value of their brand. And then there are periodic reviews and check-offs. And for instance, that one of the possible benefits and results of this WEDF in Italy, together with Márcio, we've discussed yesterday with Mr. Kanima, who oversees tourism in Rwanda, to see whether he could start a consultation with the Federation of the Private Sector of Industries in Rwanda, which is a reasonably solid organization, and he agreed that they should start a consultation to see whether, as the Federation of Touristic Industries in Rwanda, they could sign up to this charter, which, again, we believe, and he seems to believe, but we'll see what's the result of the consultation, could help upgrading the Rwandan brand in terms of tourism.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation, Pascal. We're actually going to move into the area of Rwandan tourism with Davidson, sorry. So there is local communities in Rwanda. I mean, we do talk about tourism, ecotourism in Rwanda, but what's the challenge you face when you're dealing with poor local communities faced with this mass, in a sense, mass tourism in your country?
Thank you, Shada. First of all, when people talk about Rwanda tourism, you tend to think about mountain areas, and actually, it's beyond the mountain areas. We have a lot to offer with the local communities, and that's why I talk about the community-based tourism and also the historical and cultural tourism. Now, the approaches we use of what we call the pro-poor tourism, whereby you're looking at the poor people in the communities who don't have education, who don't have capital, but you want them to benefit from tourism. So what do? What we've done in the case of Rwanda, we've established what we call community tourism cooperatives. And community tourism cooperatives, we try to make sure that we empower them, we make sure they own the tours in the villages, we train them in entrepreneurship, in management of the finances, in interpretation, in guiding. But at the same time, we instill the spirit of ownership of the tours. It's just a simple approach. We say someone's life is another one's adventure. That's our approach. We don't intervene in their daily activities. They keep doing what they're supposed to do every day, but still they benefit. Now, the challenge is tourism in general is a very fragile business. I'll go back to the question. It's a very fragile business. Today, as we speak, the international visitors don't want to come because of the fear of Ebola, which is very far away from Rwanda, by the way. But we've had some considerations. So tourism is a very fragile business. You have to make sure you manage that. The other challenge also is on the use of ICT, or what I can call the online-offline marketing. Our community members today cannot use the social networks. They don't know how to use Twitter, and actually they offer a lot, but they don't know how to use Twitter, they don't know how to use Facebook to market these products. Another challenge would be also not understanding this whole thing, because it's a new thing. So you have to take time, invest a lot of resources to make sure they do understand. So that's another challenge. The other challenge also in this business is the perception of the West or yes, on Africa in general. Because as
connectivity and how difficult it is actually to move around. How is infrastructure or lack of infrastructure a challenge for you as a tourist leader as well?
In terms of connectivity, I think for Rwanda's case, I think it's the advantage because it's being a small country, you can travel everywhere the longest train would be actually like 6 hours from Kigali. The rest is 2 hours to any village. And on very good roads, by the way, very good roads and very good public transport. So in terms of connectivity, I don't see a problem. And also, I have to say, today we have different telecommunication networks which cover the entire country. So even if you go to maybe you or let me say to the farthest, you're going to have full cell communication. So I don't see a problem with connectivity once you are in Rwanda, and I know the government is doing a lot to connect internationally.
So you find that there is an enabling, what we call the enabling environment in Rwanda for promoting the kind of tourism you want?
Because it's a new thing, yes. There is that factor of not people understanding what is community-based tourism. Everyone is focused more on border tracking. So that's the only challenge I see in terms of understanding the problem.
Okay, well, good luck. Márcio, I left you to the last because I really want your words of wisdom and experience in this sector. Tourism is, interestingly enough, now on the post-2015 development agenda of the United Nations. And I confess I was a little surprised when I heard that, but then you explained to me just why this is. So I was wondering if you could first of all tell us about how tourism and development play your own experience, and secondly about what's happening in the UN framework, about where to take the discussion further, please.
Thank you very much, Shada. Good morning to you all. At first, I would like to thank you very much, ITC, for having UNWTO here. We are strengthening our working relations with ITC because it makes all sense to have, because small and medium-sized enterprises have all to do with tourism. And as mentioned before, tourism is an export service. I don't know if I'm going to bring words of wisdom, as you mentioned, because I think we have words of wisdom and experience from the 5 previous panelists here. But I would like to give a kind of overall perspective for our friends here and why tourism has taken this stage. As most of the people here are businessmen and businesswomen, let's see the market, how it's been grown. In 1950, only 25 million people traveled abroad. This year, we are going to have more than 1 billion and 100 million international trips. 1 billion, 100 million this year. So it means that every day, at least 3 million people take the road, take the airplane, take the boat, and travel abroad for at least one overnight. This is not considering domestic tourism, because this year we are going to have something like 6 billion domestic trips around the world. So tourism has become a global phenomenon. Some 30 years ago, only 30% of international arrivals came to developing countries. Now it's about 48% of those 1.1 billion international arrivals. So we estimate that by 2020, it will be half and half, developing countries and developed countries. In 2020, there will be 1.4 billion international arrivals, and 10 years later, in 2030, 1.8 billion international arrivals. These figures are big, but how about Africa? Africa still has, let's say, a small share in this big pie, but the pie is growing, and Africa's share is also growing and will continue to grow. So in 10 years' time, it will be about 7% overall. Last year, we had some 55 million international arrivals in Africa alone. So Africa has become a very important overall tourism destination, and Minister St.Ange is totally right when he is talking about brand Africa, because tourism has a lot to do with perception. A lot to do with perception. As mentioned here before, Ebola, which is a serious problem, is taking place elsewhere in Africa, and the whole continent suffers. So, in the brand, we see brands of different regions of the world, so it makes all sense to continue and to support this growth of tourism in Africa. Now, besides the GDP share of tourism overall and the amount of exports and services, there are a few other, let's say, figures or information that are very relevant. With a study we conducted with UN Women, we found that 55% of all jobs in tourism are taken up by women. So our sector has a great employability for women. Second, as our sector has very low barriers for entrance in terms of capital barriers or technical barriers, it's very easy to start a business. So it is a natural destination for many entrepreneurial talents, whether from of boys or girls, women or men. So it's very easy to start a company in our sector. In fact, if we look at many international big brands in tourism and many national brands, we see that only one generation ago, they were just a small business. They started by one person, by two persons, and now they employ thousands of people. So tourism has really become, let's say, a global phenomenon, and has attracted the attention of the international community. Now, we've seen this recognition in the last couple of years. In the Rio +20 conference 2 years ago, for the first time, tourism was part of the outcome document of the conference. So tourism was recognized as one of the thematic issues for the international community to look at in the next 15 years with women, empowerment of women, with seas, with water and food and nutrition, and so many different things that are important for the development of mankind. And now with the discussions of the post-2015 agenda, with the new Sustainable Development Goals, tourism is there. It's part of that agenda. It's part of the goal related to economic development, of sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic development. Tourism is there because it's an instrument, it's an enabler of sustainable development.
That's a very impressive background on how global tourism is on the rise. Of course, there are negative impacts, and Pascal has told us about all the efforts being made to make it more ethically friendly and more sustainable. Just one quick question for you, Márcio. In terms of SMEs, because most of our participants here are leaders, entrepreneurs in small and medium-sized enterprises, what are the opportunities do you think that tourism offers to SMEs in terms of locking into the various sectors, various areas, the supply chain of tourism?
There are several areas or several of the tourism industries. There are obvious opportunities, such as in the accommodation industry, hotels, small hotels, restaurants, local transport providers. In the handicraft, there are many possibilities in the supply chain to hotels, to aviation. So there are many different possibilities, and ICT now has opened up a big area of opportunities because tourism benefits from ICT very, very much. But also tourism generates opportunities for ICT development. So it's a win-win game situation. And there are several creative industries in the cultural area, as Mr. St.Ange mentioned here, where initiatives can really add value to the tourism supply chain.
As Marjorie was saying, the coconut oil massage is the way to go. I'm really delighted with my panelists, so I will buy you a drink later on. You've been very good, informative, precise, and sticking to the timeline, so you're my heroes for today. I'd like to open the floor. To questions, but before I do that, I just want to know how many of you are actually in one way or the other involved in tourism industry. Are there people in here, SMEs, who are working? Because don't forget, Márcio said it's an easy entrance area, so that's probably where the money is as well in the business. So not really at the moment. So yes. Yes, Alain wants to say a word. Alain, you can say a word.
I think what is very, very important is what is not tourism. Instead of asking what is tourism, but what is not tourism. Anything you touch, be it a taxi, be it a bus, be it a fruit growing, be it a small arts and crafts, everything is tourism at the end of the day. And I think everybody here, if you analyze what you're doing perfectly, you will see that you are tourism or that support industry for the tourism industry.
So look deep inside you. Thank you very much. So I have questions. Yes, please. We have a roving microphone. Could you just put your hand up slightly higher? There's a lady here in the second row. If I could make a plea, please keep your questions short because you see we have a very good panel and I'd like them to be engaged for a long time. So please, short and snappy questions. Thank you. Identify yourself as well, please, madam.
Okay, my name is Jacqueline Nene Maleko. I'm the Director General of Tanzania Trade Development, which is responsible for development of goods and services, trade in goods and services. I have observations and a question, but mainly an observation. The challenge we have in Africa is, who is the tourism for? We look tourism from outside instead of within. So there is a big challenge of encouraging internal tourism. You get a holiday, you don't think of tourism inside, you think of tourism outside. And we have a lot of tourist attractions. So we have to have affirmative action of promoting this culture of tourism because charity should start at home. Why are you preparing something to attract somebody from outside and you've never even been at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro and you are promoting Kilimanjaro? Another thing is because it's very important. Another thing is non-traditional tourism. This tattoo they are putting on. If we had patented our henna, we are using henna to draw ourselves, to decorate ourselves. This is not tourism. Now we are importing tattoo from outside. This is a tourism. They could have come here to put on that they are using henna, which is our tradition. Other things is our beaches. We've not promoted our beaches. We have mountains, national parks, and the rest. As you rightly said, everything is tourism. And our food is tourism. Our beaches is tourism. We have movies. We have dances, traditional dances. We have everything. So please, as a point to drive home, it's not necessarily a question. As a point to drive home, we have to stimulate internal tourism and concentrate in stimulating so that we can create demand for very good. Thank you. Thank you. But there's one thing please allow me for Honorable Pascal. We are talking about gender in everything. But in WTO agreements, gender is silent. I hope if you mainstream gender in WTO agreements, a lot of things will be ironed out. Now that you are out, I think you can wait on me. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent start to the discussion. I saw a hand up here, please. Can you just take the microphone to the gentleman? Please try and be brief because I'm sure they really want to come in and discuss.
Thank you. My name is Paula from the Chamber of Commerce. My question is regarding the regional promotion of tourism. In Ethiopia, we have the biggest number of UNESCO registered tourism attraction sites, and we are developing strategies for promoting the sector's infrastructure, connectivity, and everything. But the result is not as such expected. And I think the missing link is the regional promotion. We need to promote the sector as a region, because a tourist could not come to visit a single site in one country rather than he wants to travel in the region. So how do you see any panelists from you? How do we promote tourism as a region?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you very much indeed for that. I saw some hands up here. The lady at the back in white.
Now, mine is really a call to governments.
Just quickly identify yourself.
My name is Angela Bagame. I'm a management consultant, but I also own an eco-tourist resort. My urge is to governments. We are heavily taxed, and tourism is a long-term investment. So we find that as you take one step forward, you're taking two steps back. And we then make it impossible or hard for the locals, first of all, and then for foreigners to have favorable rates at which they can actually come and enjoy what we have to offer. We must have a balance where we are offering something that people will come for, but at the same time acknowledge that we do have to pay taxes, but they shouldn't inhibit people from coming to enjoy the services.
Yeah, very, very good question, very precise. Gentlemen over here, please, and then I'll go for the panelists. Yes, I will go
from Rwanda. Mine is not a question, but it is a request. I would like to request the Honorable Minister from Seychelles to allow me to talk to him after this meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, right, so I'm going to take a question since, the gentleman over there, please put your hand.
I'm from India. Now, I have no questions. I have one observation and one request. The observation is, in our part of the world, we have been attracted by the Caribbean tourism, primarily because we know Caribbeans from Vivian Richards, Gary Sobers and the Calypso. It has been promoted as an ideal relaxation destination. Back home in India, we have found the Indian state of Kerala positioning itself as God's own country and seeing a secular growth of tourism, even much beyond what rest of India enjoys. Now that's an important thing which I would like to suggest, that what is that missing brand or missing idea or missing message which can perhaps be sent out to the world so that tourism can get attracted. Africa can perhaps look into that aspect. The second is a request. Since Mr. Pascal Lamy is here, I would like if we can have a parallel session on the other WTO which he prefers to talk of now. His observations, his reflections or whatever, you would significantly benefit from that, I hope. Thank you.
Yeah, I second that actually.
I start with my friend from Ethiopia. You're asking how to promote regional tourism. I think we can learn from our colleagues from the years, the National Geographic Society, who are actually promoting what they call tourism, which is really working well for the United States. If you can adapt that concept and customize it in our region, that would be great. But going back to the private sector, what you can do as a private sector. If you can partner with tour operators, for example, in Ethiopia, we know you have what we call the unique selling products, which we don't have here in Rwanda. And glad enough, we have Ethiopian Airlines. Why don't we partner such that we let deal with the airlines, we sell your products, you sell our products. We start from there, simple. Okay, in East Africa, we started with creating the tripartite treaty between Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, which is working out very well, where we have one visa and you can visit all these countries. Why don't we do it with other regions? Start with one visa. Make sure traveling is easy for everyone. So I think we can start with those. We should avoid what I call copy and paste products, whereby nobody is thinking of having unique products. All we do is copy what this one is doing and then you can paste it. I think we should start from there.
Davidson, just quickly, you said, the lady asked a question about internal tourism, and you said one person's life is another person's adventure. If you're having internal tourism, is that still the case?
Her point was really very genuine and good point of having regional tourism, or how you call it, domestic tourism. Because you cannot talk about sustainable tourism when you don't build on regions or domestic tourism. Today we are crying there's Ebola virus. But if you had regional or domestic tourism, we shouldn't be crying about our economies because it will work out. So I think I'll take the point serious.
Yeah, good point. Please, Marjorie.
I'm going to respond to two questions. Firstly, the lady who is so passionate, who is tourism for? It's actually a very important question, and I see where your concern is that the focus might be outward and not inward. It takes time to develop that inward package. And in the case of Africa, not to necessarily compare to the Caribbean in terms of scale, but the challenge is the same, connectivity. Until you begin to address the issue of connectivity throughout your countries, you may not realize the full potential of your inward tourism. Does that mean that you don't start? Of course, each country, and this leads on to the other question that was raised about regional promotion of tourism. Africa has to find a way, as the Caribbean has managed to do, establish its brand as one region or one continent, but still highlight the unique selling propositions and the differentiating factors of each country. And in the case of the Caribbean, many of the islands, we do promote inward tourism. We do have local rates to encourage, even as a Jamaican, I can tell you that I cannot tell you that I know every single fabulous site in my country, and it's on my bucket list, to do. But it is important to have this because you do want, when your people can appreciate your tourism product, they themselves become stronger sellers for your product. But do not discount this issue of connectivity. I feel strongly about it as well, Shada, from my region, because I feel that we have not maximized our tourism linkages as a result of not having that ease of connectivity throughout the islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Pascal.
Well, let me, for the sake of the discussion, take a slightly contrarian view. What matters at the end of the day, if you are in this business for a country, is how much does a tourist spend in your country? What matters is the value addition, not what goes to the multinational, which is a tour operator, but what from that goes to increase the activity of the economy in Europe. And let's be frank, richer tourists have deeper pockets than poorer tourists. And if they have deeper pockets, they will spend more. So for the moment, I think the priority for countries and regions like this one is to try and attract the deeper pocket tourists. It may sound a bit business-like, but at the end of the day, that's also what matters. Now, if that is true, what should, let's say, public authorities do? And I get that from the experience on many continents. One, infrastructures. We've already discussed that. transport, IT connectivity, you need to have Wi-Fi. If you go to this formidable lodge, which I went to in this Numwe forest near the Kivu Lake, it's a great place. You have Wi-Fi connection. And that's the reality of today's life. But it's not just only about hard infrastructures. The capacity to properly distribute and allocate air slots for airlines has a huge bearing on the competitiveness of the airlines, hence on the price they can bill to tourists. Now, then there's a whole series of, like in other areas, trade facilitation. For instance, within the Eastern African community, they agreed a single visa tourist. So if you go to Kenya or to Rwanda or Uganda, you don't have to ask for another. That's something which is a very important promotion of tourism because it allows people to go to different countries much more easily. And that's not, that's not costly, It's not high infrastructure, you don't have to spend millions. You just have to take a decision that you have a single visa. And then there's a third issue, and we discussed that a lot yesterday also, which has to do with standards. Many of these systems along the value chain, and food is an important part of the value chain, have to import food because they need food that abides to international quality standards. And there's a huge part of what your tourist spend, which you have to import in many countries because your food local production system does not provide, it provides excellent meat and fish and fruit, but they are not certified. So the tour operator will only give the money to the one that is certified. And that's something, again, which is not rocket science, which is not billions of dollars, but if you do that, then you can capture much more of the added value. And I'm saying this because sometimes it's counterintuitive, but in reality, it can be a big promoter, and this is where SMEs come in. If SMEs can match the sort of standard, then the sort of diffusion effect of tourists spending money into rural areas, and notably food production areas, can be much bigger than it is today.
Thank you, Pascal. Hard talk, but really very, very good advice, in fact, yes. That is the way to go. Mr. Jobe, please.
Thank you very much, Mugisha. I think I like hard talk because it exposes the reality. I think I look at it in the context of tourism comprises of three issues, which is the international tourism, the regional, and the domestic tourism. I think both of these three factors or elements of the tourism sector are equally important. Each one has something to contribute. Not discounting the importance of domestic tourism. Yes, we need domestic tourism, but also we have international tourism because we want economic growth and development. And with all due respect and facts to some of the concerns that have been raised, what Pascal has said is very important. International tourism, people who have deep pockets that can, like Maxwell said, the person that has the deepest pocket will always have the loudest voice. But obviously, in this particular case, it is not in the context of the loudest voice, but it is in the context of, that person being able to, have disposable income, being able to spend. There will be sometimes in the international tourism, you have all-inclusive tourism. You pay everything, but there is something that would trickle down, and there is something that will come into the country. Now, when that comes into the country, it benefits the country. Now, in addition to that, we need to work together as regions, as Alain said, as regions, to have a brand And the plan will include regional tourism as well as local tourism, with the uniqueness of each of our individual countries' potentials and capacities. I think this is the essence, and this is where we need to move forward and work together. I mean, in terms of the regional, as we said, tourism is part of trade. There is a regional integration, which is being championed by the, AU, and therefore that part of that the tourism should be an integral and an important part of that integration, wherein countries see how they can come together with their uniqueness, as my brother said, not using cut-and-paste approaches. We need to look at things from first principles and look at what it is that each country can benefit, can put on the table and work together in the interest of our common people. All right, thank you very much.
No, Abdou, thank you. I have a follow-up for you. There's a question from a lady about taxes, and I think you as a minister are well placed to answer that.
The governments have to be responsive, and I think governments have tax-based economy, and the social services or the issues need to be financed, and government need those resources. I think, but at the same time, government need to, consult, need the dialogue with the private sector in the tourism sector. I can, align with my concern, because in most cases, government see the tourism sector as a cash cow, because there is money there, and therefore it's an avenue for them to have revenue. But I think their concern need to be put on the table and exposed, and government need to listen to them and see what needs to be done, so that we look at tourism within the context of what she said as a long haul, and see the overall, development, the overall benefit of tourism to the economy, not just taxing the tourism businesses and services, at the detriment of the.
So we'll be watching you.
We'll look at it. Well, I'm not the taxman, but I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's positive.
Well, if I can just start on the tax system first, because it is very important. No country in Africa, you're not competing against yourselves. You're competing against regions of the world to bring people to you. If we are taxed, we make ourselves uncompetitive, and this then kills this trade. I think it is so important for Africa to grow the African cake, that tourism that we can bring to this region of Africa. Once we've done that, we will all be happy, because when the cake is bigger, we will find that we all benefit from this. But I want to take the point that made by a lady about Africa must know Africa. We must know our own countries before we try to get to the North Pole. Yes, we have all the assets that can attract people to our countries. But do we really visit each other? I'm ashamed it's my first visit to Rwanda. I'm really ashamed. And I know Rika, who was from the Rwanda Development Board, had been telling me, come to see us in Kigali. But today, at least I'm here, I know many African countries. But we must all get to know our own countries. Then we will be better placed to tell the world how beautiful this Africa is. If we don't know it ourselves, it is virtually impossible. But for us to get more of our own people to travel within Africa, we must look at the visas that we have. I mean, this is an impediment. Seychelles prides itself to say we are visa-free because we are friends of all and enemies of none. So if we are a friend, we don't need a visa to come and visit us. But Africa, I mean, I salute the three countries of East Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda, that moved to have one visa to go into the three countries. This is a step that Africa must follow, because it is so important for people not to be bothered with boundaries. But I want to take the point also about groupings. Whilst we wait for this Africa brand, that will be the ideal thing for Africa to see. Today, CPO is a classic in the Caribbean. In the Indian Ocean Islands, we rallied ourselves beyond Africa. We got the Favilla Islands Club, that today takes the middle of the Indian Ocean. We branched it to Maldives. We went further down to Sri Lanka. Soon we'll take Zanzibar and then finally Mozambique Islands. Because it is, again, trying to take the plus of one, add it to the other unique selling points, and create this shape to make it bigger. But the big question that came out this afternoon is, who is tourism for? And this is such an important question, and I think every government must sit down and analyze what is your tourism industry, who benefits from it. And I will just refer to one grouping called the East Free Route, which originated by President Mandela, which takes South Africa, Swaziland, Mozambique, and then Seychelles. We work tirelessly to bring community-based tourism, to get tourism to benefit the little districts, to get tourism to benefit the little countryside, where the people would then defend tourism and try and work for consolidation of our tourism industry. But this works, and it is something that maybe should grow, should bring more countries of Africa together. But Brand Africa, finally, is a savior in many ways. After Top Reza next week, I have to go to China. And only firefighting in China, because I have to go there and tell them Seychelles has no Ebola. We are today getting cancellations out of China, even though we sit in the middle of an ocean, because the world has the perception Africa is so small, and if there's Ebola somewhere, it's everywhere. Even the countries where Ebola is, it's not the whole country that should be looked at. We have to have this Brand Africa with a map that states clearly where we have a problem, when we have a problem, so that the world can know not to blacklist the whole of Africa, or whitelist because it comes from primarily Western countries. We must find a way to tell the world Africa has its specificities, but Africa is a big continent, and Africa must be able to weather the difficulties that we face when we face it, but it is only Brand Africa, with a clear definition of what it is, that can do that when it happens.
Thank you very much. I think these first questions gave way to such an interesting debate and points. I would like to touch on a few of them. The issue of the multi-destination that came up here. I think this is very, very important. It's a development that we've seen lately. This regional branding helps that, enhances that, and connectivity is key to ensure that the multi-destination, let's say, product goes to the market effectively, but also the visa facilitation. So you have to have both the connectivity and the visa facilitation. UNWTO has developed a lot of research in the last 2 years on visa facilitation. And what we have seen, unfortunately, for many countries of Africa are the most closed in terms of visa in the world. We have developed a visa openness index, and what we see, unfortunately, is that now, as exceptions to the rule, we see that what is happening here in Rwanda with neighboring countries, in Eastern Africa, and in Seychelles and a few more that really have a different visa policy. So this is one thing. The other thing that was also mentioned is taxation, and that's also key. These are 3 priorities for UNWTO at the moment, having sustainability as an overarching priority, but the 3 issues, taxation, connectivity, and travel facilitation. And on taxation, as a minister from Gambia mentioned before, many see tourism and tourists an easy cash cow. And some would even say, oh, tourists, international tourists are not voters here, so we can tax them. But they forget that these international tourists are the ones that help generate jobs for the local voters. So this has to be looked at very attentively, because we are not against the tax. because after all, tourism uses public goods. But it has to be fair and it has to be intelligent. All in all, we see that tourism has to be for the generating jobs, for the communities. We may have economic indicators of hard currency earnings, etc. But then, in the end, what matters is jobs. And tourism generates 1 job out of 11 jobs in the world. Community development is key. And that's why this year's theme for the World Tourism Day, which is next week on the 27th, is tourism and community development, because that is key for us. And as a background to all these issues, to many of these points, I think that we can say that cooperation in tourism is key. So countries cooperating with neighboring countries, hotels of the same destination cooperating with the other hotels of the same destinations. Tourism is an area, is a sector that requires cooperation. Public-private partnerships, cooperation of different levels of government. So cooperation is key for tourism development. Competitors should cooperate because of the perception issue that we mentioned.
Because as you say, everyone has said, and people have a choice these days. They have a vast amount of choice. So whether we choose to come to Africa, or go to the Caribbean, or go to Asia, it really depends on what's on offer. It's not just prices anymore. It's the services and the quality of the services that counts. I'm really delighted. I have another 15 minutes where I can take three questions. First of all, there's a lady at the back. Always ladies first. So take a, and then I'll come to you, sir. And
within the continent, sorry. I believe that the knowledge that Africa is home to amazing landscapes and unparalleled natural beauties is fairly well entrenched throughout the global landscape. But I think there's also much to be said about the complexities and dynamism of many of its urban centers. So what I would like to understand is if you, the members of this distinguished panel, believe that there is scope to invest in promoting urban tourism as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great, great question. Very valid point. Gentlemen over here, please. Would you please put up your hand? Yeah. Yes. No, I think it's something that we don't talk about, but metropolises are growing at an amazing rate, not just in China, but across the world. And some people like cities. I do. I love cities.
Thanks. My name is Márcio from South Africa. We noted with some appreciation the proposal for the establishment of the African brand. One immediately realizes that once you have a brand, you must maintain it in order for it to generate value for you. Of course, this requires joint owners of the brand to maintain a certain level of integrity to protect it. And as always, calling for members to act responsibly and maintain certain principles. Now, my question is on 2 parts. The first one is that are we ready? Are we indeed ready to establish or adopt an African brand, given all our challenges that we've got? Mindful of the fact that indeed, are we not supposed to put in place certain kind of principles in place? I mean, the same kind of an approach like with the EU. I mean, for one to actually qualify or be eligible to be a member, there were certain requirements that were supposed to be there. And the last question, what mechanism are we going to put in place to maintain this brand Africa, and ensuring that owners of this brand doesn't ruin it? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Over here. If your question is a quick one, I can take one at the back. So if you're respectful of your colleagues, you be brief, and then I can take one more question.
Thank you so much. My name is Elvin. I'm Rwanda. So, I have a question. I want to know how ITC can connect or can help the innovative people or someone who have innovation. For example, if I am here, I identify many solutions that can help the exportation. So I ask, how can I connect, or how the people like me who have the innovation can connect ITC to implement that idea? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And there was a gentleman in blue sweater right at the back. We're running short of time, but please be brief.
Thank you very much. Mine goes directly, especially to Mr. Davidson and Mugisha. It has been very fantastic to hear about community tours and the fact that it benefits the locals. Kindly explain a little bit further how you have made the locals aware of this concept. How do you sensitize them to know that they need something like this, which actually benefits them, and not us believing that okay, because here we know now, right now, it exists, but how sure can you let us know that it actually is going on down there?
Yeah, thank you. I think Davidson answered. I saw a lady here, and you have to be very brief because lunch is waiting as well, and I think our panelists deserve a little break. Yeah, quickly.
Thank you very much. My name is St.Ange. I'm a Nigerian and I came to this conference from London. I'm looking at the topic for our discussion, which is tourism for development, opportunity for SME trade. I'm also into the business of tourism in Nigeria. And sitting here and listening at all the good suggestions about Branding Africa, working together, sorting out connectivity, I'm thinking behind my back, what are those opportunities for all of us who are working in this industry in the whole of Africa, present at this meeting, to take back with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Okay, I've got now very interesting questions, very diverse questions. Going to go the other way around now. Going to first turn to you, Márcio, and then take this.
Thank you. Let me take up the issue of urban tourism that was mentioned in the first question. Indeed, about half of the population of the world today live in urban areas. And it's through urban areas that, or at urban areas, that a lot of, or most of the tourism, international tourism nowadays, and even domestic tourism takes place. So this is very important in terms of market, in terms of opportunities. A lot of creative industries activities take place in urban areas, not only, but a lot of them do take place in urban areas, and they add value to the tourism product. So this is indeed very important, and even at UNWTO, we have had now annual conferences on the issue of urban tourism. The next one is going to be in Barcelona in the first week of December, because this is very important.
So we're talking museums, restaurants, discotheques, clubs.
Just a whole number of attractions that draw people to urban areas, whether they come from that country or from abroad. So this is very important. Obviously, most airports, important airports, are in urban areas, so that gives a competitive edge to the urban tourism.
Nice, of course. Alain, a question also, very interesting question of maintaining the brand.
It's a very important question. Once we create something, we will need to defend it, to consolidate it, and get it to work for Africa. Today we have many groupings. SADC, the Southern African body, the East African community, the Francophone Africa community, the Vanilla Islands group of African islands in the Indian Ocean. We have many groupings, but we all trying to achieve the same thing, have a brand for the region where we fit. But are we ready for the brand? We will keep on having these groupings, each one selling Africa in their own way. The day we rally ourselves, it is Africa that will create the brand of Africa for Africa. We will need to know what we put in it, we will need to know how we're going to disseminate it, and what perception we're going to get the world to see Africa as, Today it is a confused message that is hitting the world. Very confused. And if there's any worse confusion, is the Ebola case. Africa is today suffering because of cancellations. The whole of Africa suffers. Some are so far away, including us in Seychelles, from where Ebola is, but the whole of Africa is being labeled as a country rampant with Ebola. And these are the problems that Brand Africa can cure for us. Are we ready? We must be ready today if we are going to save ourselves and give the world the right information about where Africa is. And the lady touched a point about what do we do? What do we go back with? I think we have to start forgetting that there is Brand Africa that will come one day. Today we know the assets of Africa. We know the diversity that sits in Africa. We must find a way that all tourist offices of Africa to be more informative, to tell the world what we have. It is very clear unless you get into a country. I mean, I landed last time driving into Kigali. I am amazed how clean Kigali is. And it is a perception that we have. We know some of our own countries of Africa that are not as clean as Kigali. But for the world, everybody is the same. But Kigali stands out, being an extremely orderly and clean city. So if this is the case, let us find all these unique attractions of what makes us different from others and tell the world about it. I think, Madam, if there's one thing you can go back with from Kigali, is tell the UK that Kigali is extremely clean.
Alain is saying, since I've been here now, since we've been about 2 years, I've been, just a comment on branding. Building a country brand is not an easy exercise. It's not even a cheap exercise by any means. And it is not an overnight exercise. You're quick to have a country brand, you're quick to have a continent brand, but think carefully, because once you develop this brand, you have to be able to support the brand. So I would suggest you be patient in this regard.
Thank you. I want to ask a question of awareness to communities. One of the approaches we use, actually, in each community, we have what we call social workers. And it is these social workers who pass on the message in the community. Secondly, we have the communities know the benefits and what they benefit from the tourism. I give an example in one of the regions where we started the community-based tourism. The people could not raise 300 francs to join the cooperative. But today, their cooperative has assisted over 30 million Rwanda francs. So because of this, they tell others, and it has kind of multiplied. And the other thing is also we collaborate with other stakeholders. The Rwanda Development Board, the SMV, is collaborated with the SMV to pass the message into the communities. And lastly, also because it's kind of a unique thing, we don't want to over-excite communities. We try to avoid that. What we do is to make sure we under-promise, we over-deliver. We make sure they see the results and the message goes on its own. And we have developed protocols in the communities. When we visit the communities, we don't allow you, surprisingly, we don't allow you to give out cookies or sweets to the children because we don't want to encourage begging. And if you want to give out something to the community, make sure you announce it in front of the community leaders. So it is announced, so it is, the communication has to go to the leaders of the cooperative. And you're not supposed to litter. I think you say that it's clean, but even deep in the villages, it's clean. So we don't allow you to litter. So we have these protocols and they have to be respected. And we communicate them to the communities and to the visitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing you hear when you're landing in Kigali is an announcement by the airline saying no plastic bags to Kigali. At least that's the one I heard. I was really impressed. I had no idea. Makes sense. I'm not going to make things easier for you by wrapping up because I think we've had some fascinating insights, really challenging us to think about tourism, in my case at least, in a different way. So I'm not going to wrap up. I'm just going to say, take these ideas with you, see what Alain said. All of us are in one way or the other involved as tourists, all in one way or the other were ambassadors of our nations, of our communities. So thank you. Join me please in thanking our panelists. I think we've had some inspirational speakers, and thank them for the questions. I'd just like to say that it's been a pleasure for me to moderate these discussions at WEDF. I've enjoyed it because I've met some inspirational, fascinating people, old friends in you, and also because you, as an audience, as participants, have been so active, so proactive, and led to stimulating discussions. So thank you again, and I think we'll just stand for lunch.
institute